Vikings. Terry had a mission in Norway, and he extended his stay there by attending the University of Oslo. And while attending college, he worked for a travel agent and was working for United Airlines at the time of the trip. His vast knowledge of Europe, his connections in the travel industry, prepared him to guide his family on a trip that would be cherished forever. This video is for reliving that experience and to give thanks for having been part of it. These are my parents, Earl and Isabel Carlson. If you think that look on their faces one of happiness, it's because this is the first time in their lives they ever afforded themselves a vacation. I do believe that this is Mom's favorite pose whenever she gets her picture taken.
This is the first stop on our trip in Stockholm, this famous city hall. And if it looks familiar, this is where all the Nobel Prizes are given.
I've never met a piano I couldn't play, except for this one. They won't let you play it. There's a guard watching it. So I'm going to play till I get caught and kicked off. Counseled by Terry to dress appropriate for every occasion. That was very important to him and important to all of us. We wanted to leave a good impression, and we didn't want to be known as ugly Americans.
This is the graveyard in Karlstad, Sweden, where we were told we had ancestors buried. Very happy to see Uncle Earl, Aunt Coral, and Ruth all at the gravestone. The city of Stockholm is very unique in European standards because it has never been fought over in conquest of war. So there is no damage on any buildings, many of which are over 1,000 years old.
We heard that the Bob Hope of Sweden was playing at the Bern Hotel, so we decided to do dinner there. He brought down the house with his performance. The place was rocking with laughter. We couldn't get any of the jokes because they were all in Swedish, and I'm sure those other people thought we must be totally deaf. We learned later that Jesper Parnevik, touring PGA professional, was his son. Somebody had to keep us on time so that we could see everything, and Uncle Irvin volunteered. When it was time to go, you could hear him say, "Okay, back on the bus."
Just imagine the feeling you would have to have everyone that you've loved in this world together in the same room at the same time. To have your family, your parents, your aunts and uncles, your cousins, and the friends that you had served as a missionary with for 2.5 years. Even today, just thinking about it, I get so emotional. The Norwegians planned a beautiful banquet for us and a tribute and a program that was beyond description. I get the feeling maybe that's how it's going to be when we cross through the veil and see Grandpa and Grandma and the rest of the family waiting for us.
Our Heavenly Father was with us on this trip. When I think of each one of us being gone for 30 days and leaving the things that we were responsible for at home, it was just unbelievable. None of us had any business of going, but I'm eternally grateful that we went. So thankful to Terry and Marilyn and all their work, and to Joe for putting this video together. There aren't words to express what we enjoyed those 30 days. You'd have to see the eyes of our loved ones and the smiles and the camaraderie. Unbelievable.
There is a beautiful park in Oslo called Frogner Parken. The statues in the park were made by a Norwegian sculptor named Vigeland. The statues depict all the trials in life, the vicious circle of life, the climbing for power of life, birth, death, family, destruction, war. It's all portrayed in the statues. What a wonderful place to discover who you are as a person and where you fit. A special event in Oslo was to go to the Bygdøy Museum. At the museum, we saw the Kon-Tiki raft that was made out of papyrus. It was the explorer Thor Heyerdahl who proved that the rafts could go from Egypt to South America along natural ocean currents. I had the privilege of meeting Thor Heyerdahl. Although he never joined the church, he believed that the raft and the ability to go from Egypt to South America was absolutely truth. The other thing that we saw there was the ancient Viking ships. Many of these ships were used by the Viking royals after they died. Their bodies and all their belongings were put on the ship. The ship was set afire and pushed out into the fjord.
Okay, everybody, back on the bus.
I guess the one thing about Copenhagen that everybody remembers is that it's a city that reminds you of a storybook, and they have done well in letting the world know all the history behind this beautiful little city and beautiful country. Tivoli Gardens, The Little Mermaid, Hans Christian Andersen, and for those of you who are our children and our great-grandchildren, Hans Christian Andersen wrote the book that originally was for Frozen.
We stayed up late and we hit the streets running every day. One morning, just prior to the morning alarm clock going off, there was a timid knock at the door, and there was Barney. He'd been out early to the walking street and had bought flowers for each of the girls on the trip. And he just wanted each of us to know he loved us and to have a nice day. And it was just perfect. What a gentleman.
One of the fun things we did in Copenhagen was visit the little village where Hans Christian Andersen grew up. They had acquired several little small buildings which were decorated in the time of his living. We walked through each one of the homes where his stories came alive to us and were given a royal tour by a wonderful guide.
Okay, everybody, back on the bus. We didn't have a lot of time in Brussels. Basically, we just stood amazed in the center of the square. And we learned that most all European cities have a central area, much like the one we saw in Brussels. This is the famous little boy statue. I don't think you'd find one of these in a conservative town in Utah. The day we were there, they had him all dressed up for something. Okay, back on the bus. Amsterdam is a beautiful and rather unique city. The waterways and beautiful old buildings and museums and the headquarters of the world for diamonds. As you will see, many people live on these canals. As we drove through these big apartment houses, it was very curious to me, at least, to be seeing these ladies silhouetted by a red light in their window. I didn't know what that was all about, but Terry explained it all to me. Now this really isn't a traffic cop. It's just someone that shows up every day playing like one, and they say it's been going on for years. That world-renowned artist Rembrandt lived and worked in Amsterdam, and many of his original masterpieces are on display here at the Rijksmuseum. Here's Melba and our good friends Evelyn and Kenny Brereton in front of the home of Anne Frank.
I think, Joe, the one thing I wanted to say about this home is the sadness and the sense of death of the young girl as you walk into the home and throughout the tour. It takes a while, even after you've left the building, to get those feelings off your shoulders.
Okay, everybody, back on the bus.
36 years ago, when we left on this family vacation, we were the young punks, Today, as we prepare this video, we are the old timers. And my heart has been reflecting on our legacy and what fine, fine people our aunts and uncles were. And it puts the pressure on each one of us to live a full and good life and be the example to our families now that they were to us. I love Paris.
As you can see from this picture, one of our greatest experiences we had on the trip was taking a boat trip down the Seine. Most of Paris and the major landmarks are located right along the side of the river. We spent several hours in the Louvre. There's no way you could see it all at one time. It is the type of place where you could spend a year and not see it all. The wonderful art that is on display there, the pictures that you've seen throughout your childhood, throughout your life, it is really a monument to the culture of the world. A couple of other things about Paris. It's bigger than you ever thought it was. The Eiffel Tower is more spectacular than you ever thought it was. And I promise you, if you go, don't take your family to a Shostakovich Symphony Orchestra performance because they'll all fall asleep. Take them to the Moulin Rouge, and I believe the truth is no one will even blink an eye. I have read and heard stories myself that Versailles is the most opulent palace in the world. It was built by Louis XV in order to have a better place than he actually lived in prior to. When you have heard the words, "let 'em eat cake," it kind of reminds you of the situation we are in today. In France, they had everything or they had nothing. One of the things that we didn't get to do, which we tried, was to see the Lamoureux Orchestra that had been founded by our triple great-grandfather. It was the time of the season that we were there, and so we didn't get that opportunity.
Tickets from 7.
All right, everybody, back on the bus. This is the LDS Temple in Bern, Switzerland. I'll always remember walking around those grounds and smelling the most beautiful fresh bread smell I have ever experienced. Walked around the streets nearby trying to find.
Besides the Last Supper, the most beautiful thing to see in this city is the Duomo, which is the largest Catholic church in the world. It is even larger than St. Peter's Basilica.
This is the Cathedral of Santa Maria de Gracia, where in the year 1495, Leonardo da Vinci painted the Last Supper fittingly on the dining area of this chapel. Opposite wall, Donato Montefalmo, a student of his, painted the Crucifixion. This dining area took a direct hit in World War II, but miraculously both walls survived. This is a fact that has to strengthen your testimony. This rather impressive statue of Leonardo da Vinci is in Milan's main square. All right, everybody, back on the bus. The source. Never could, but boy, I sure would have loaded up if I could have. Okay, everybody, back on the bus.
The wonderful thing about Venice is it's probably the most romantic place in the world. To be met at your hotel with doors and step out onto 3 gondolas and to be sung to and serenaded for 2 hours was beyond belief.
Absolutely the opportunity of a lifetime. I'm reading through the itinerary here, and it said that we will be riding a gondola through the Grand Canal, and the ride will cost approximately $10 a person. Can you imagine? I wonder what it would cost today.
The other thing that you notice is the elegance of the city of Venice, which was at its prime in the Italian culture. When you think of the billions of dollars that have been spent to keep that city above water.
You can't be in Venice and not see the way the Venetian glass is made. It is an artistry that only exists in Venice. And the Murano glass factory is the best of the best. On this day, Woodrow Sullivan, who is the great-granddaughter of my dad's Aunt Susie. At the time, she was a cab driver in Winnemucca, Nevada. A number of us were gathered around this absolutely magnificent dining table as the salesman was telling us all about it. We were amazed by the detail and the magnificence of each piece. I think there was a service for 12. He said at one point that there was only one other set in the world besides the one we were looking at, and it was owned by the Shah of Iran. Hearing that, her grandmother lifted her shirt a bit and revealed that she was wearing a money belt. I stood there in total amazement as I watched her count out the money to make herself the third person in the world to have such a set. The tips in Winnemucca must be a lot bigger than I thought they were. All right, everybody, back on the bus. This is the birthplace of Wolfgang Mozart, who grew up and did most of his work here in Salzburg. That great musical Sound of Music was filmed in Salzburg, and it was great fun seeing these locations. This was our 25th anniversary picture, and it's a family treasure to this day. Beloved Christmas carol, Silent Night, was performed first in a little chapel just like this, on this site just outside Salzburg.
We're at the Helbrunn Palace, located about 10 minutes outside of the city center, and this palace was built by the Prince Archbishop of Salzburg as a pleasure palace. He invited over his friends and other nobility to eat, drink, and be merry and enjoy themselves on these lovely lawns, hunting and relaxing and staying cool in the hot summer. He also was a bit mischievous and planted fountains throughout the grounds, firing off randomly and scaring his guests just to give himself a laugh. And you hear those noises? They're all produced by water pressure.
Along the beautiful blue Danube, we found this little, very interesting village known as Grafenbach. I found the cemetery to be extraordinarily interesting. These beautiful gravesites were for those who had died most recently. They are all temporary graves, and the remains are later moved under this chapel to be stored for eternity. Okay, everybody, back on the bus. Perhaps one of the most beautiful places that we saw was the city of Vienna. Home of Johann Strauss and the birthplace of the Vienna waltzes.
Another one of the beautiful places to see in Vienna is Schönbrunn Palace. This is one of the largest palaces in the world, and also it was the home of the Habsburg Empire, which was also the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and most royal families throughout Europe are daughters married from Mary Teresa from Vienna. Another special place that we saw in Vienna was the Lipizan horses. The horses were originally brought from Spain, and they're trained in a palace that was especially built for the horses. And every day you can go in and sit in the bleachers around the circle and watch the horses as they parade. They're all white, beautifully maintained, and well worthwhile for anyone to see. One of the other special places in Vienna is the Strauss Gardens. There's a restaurant there where we had a succulent dinner. Afterwards, we went out into the park, lit with little white Christmas lights, and danced to the Strauss Orchestra playing his famous waltzes.
No trip to Vienna is complete unless you've seen the magical Vienna Boys Choir. Okay, everybody, back on the bus. Our flight leaves in an hour.